California gives $80 billion more to Washington than it takes. Texas, it drains $70 billion more than it contributes. Those numbers aren't coming from some liberal think tank. They came straight out of Gavin Newsom's offensive against Trump and his Republican allies. And in one masterstroke, Newsom exposed the dirty little secret of America's red states. They talk about independence, about pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, yet they survive on the tax dollars of the very blue states they love to vilify. In this video, we will argue that Donald Trump's attacks on California and other blue states fall apart under the weight of cold, hard fiscal reality. Newsom's revelation is more than a political jab. It is a devastating indictment of Republican hypocrisy. For all the rhetoric about taker and maker states, the truth is that blue states like California bankroll the very red states that Trump and his MAGA allies hold up as models of governance. By exposing this imbalance, Newsom not only humiliates Trump personally, but also reshapes the national conversation about federal spending, state contributions, and who really keeps America afloat. Here's how we'll break this down. First, we'll examine the political climate that set the stage for Newsom's declaration and Trump's defensive panic. Then, we'll dive into the three most striking revelations: the fiscal imbalance between blue and red states, the myth of red state efficiency, and the broader implications for national politics. Finally, we'll explore what this means for the 2024 and 2028 political landscapes and why Trump is especially vulnerable to this line of attack. For decades, Republicans have sold the narrative that red states represent the real America, fiscally responsible, morally upright, and less dependent on Washington. Donald Trump weaponized this mythology, portraying Democratic-led states like California as chaotic, crime-ridden, and leeching off federal resources. The irony, however, is that the opposite is true. Since the 1980s, reports have consistently shown that blue states are the net contributors to the federal budget, while many red states rely heavily on those funds to maintain basic services, infrastructure, and welfare programs. This donor versus taker dynamic has remained one of Washington's most inconvenient truths. Enter Gavin Newsom, a governor often dismissed by Republicans as coastal elitist. Instead of retreating, Newsom has leaned into Trump's arena: social media, fast rebuttals, and sharp humor. His goal? To dismantle the MAGA myth machine with facts, satire, and bold confrontation. Trump, on the other hand, thrives on portraying California as America's cautionary tale. High taxes, homelessness, wildfires. He frames these as proof that democratic governance fails. But when Newsom points to the actual fiscal data, Trump's narrative collapses. His motivation to attack California is clear: delegitimize one of the biggest democratic powerhouses while distracting from red states' own economic failures. This clash isn't just about bruised egos, it's about political survival. By exposing that California contributes billions more to Washington than states like Texas or Mississippi, Newsom reframes the debate. Who's really subsidizing whom? If the American public accepts that red states are the ones draining federal coffers, the GOP loses its moral high ground on fiscal conservatism. And for Trump, who built his image on business savvy and economic nationalism, being painted as the figurehead of parasitic states threatens his brand more than any personal insult ever could. The most devastating revelation from Newsom is that California, a state Trump constantly derides, actually bankrolls the very red states that worship him. The rhetoric of self-reliant Republican states collapses when you look at the numbers. Newsom cited figures showing California contributes roughly $80 billion more to the federal government than it receives, while Texas, the conservative powerhouse, takes in $70 to $75 billion more than it gives back. This is not an anomaly. Reports from the Rockefeller Institute and the Tax Foundation consistently rank states like Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia as some of the most federally dependent. These are precisely the states that form Trump's electoral backbone. This imbalance exposes the hypocrisy of Trump's attacks. Every time Trump rails against California as a failed state, he is biting the hand that funds his movement. California's surplus contribution subsidizes roads in Mississippi, schools in Alabama, and healthcare programs in West Virginia. Without California, New York, and other Democratic donor states, Trump's heartland would face a fiscal collapse. That's why Newsom's attack was so potent. It didn't just mock Trump. It dismantled the myth that red states stand tall on their own. Trump loves to hold up red states like Florida, Texas, and Mississippi as success stories. But Newsom flipped the script by showing that beneath the rhetoric, these states are struggling across virtually every measurable index of prosperity. During his online counterattacks, Newsom pointed to cold statistics. Louisiana's murder rate is nearly 3 times California's. Dallas's murder rate is double that of Los Angeles. Mississippi's is 266% higher. Infant mortality rates, life expectancy, educational attainment. On nearly every metric, red states perform worse. And yet, Fox News hypes San Francisco's homelessness while ignoring Memphis's murder rate being 8 times higher. By spotlighting these disparities, Newsom weaponized facts to puncture MAGA mythology. Trump's message relies on fear. California is burning, blue cities are collapsing. But when the data show red states have deeper crises, Trump's law and order branding crumbles. Moreover, these states depend on blue state subsidies to keep afloat while failing to deliver better results for their citizens. This contradiction strikes directly at Trump's credibility as a leader who supposedly champions winning. If his strongholds are statistically failing, then what exactly is he selling to the American people? What makes this episode unique isn't just the data, it's the delivery. Newsom didn't respond with dry policy talk. He adopted Trump's own playbook of mockery, memes, and relentless offense. Take the "Make America Gavin Again" flag, a direct parody of Trump's MAGA slogan. Or the sarcastic merchandise from "Trump is not hot" shirts to mugs declaring Newsom was right about everything. Beyond satire, Newsom backed his jabs with rapid-fire fact checks, correcting Trump's false claims about inflation, posting Walmart's warnings about tariffs, and reminding Americans that electricity prices spiked 10% under Trump's policies. This fusion of humor and evidence is precisely what Democrats have historically lacked. Too often, they dismiss Trump's theatrics as beneath them, while MAGA narratives filled the void. Newsom showed that fighting fire with fire, while grounding it in truth, can unnerve Trump. Trump thrives on being the bully. But when mocked and exposed simultaneously, he loses control of the narrative. Newsom is proving that Trump's aura of invincibility is fragile when someone meets him in his own arena. These revelations are not just rhetorical victories. They have tangible political consequences heading into 2024 and beyond. Polling in 2023 already showed Trump underperforming among suburban voters in states like Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. Newsom's campaign to highlight red state dependency adds another blow. It reframes the GOP not as fiscally conservative, but fiscally parasitic. When suburban voters, who pride themselves on responsibility and independence, see that their tax dollars are funding poorly run states, Trump's message of economic nationalism rings hollow. The deeper danger for Trump is that this narrative sticks. For decades, Republicans won by branding Democrats as the party of handouts. If Democrats successfully brand red states as the real moochers, Trump loses one of his most effective weapons. Worse still, this attack doesn't just damage him, it delegitimizes the entire Republican coalition he leads. Newsom has effectively turned fiscal conservatism into a Democratic talking point, a devastating shift in the ideological battlefield. Newsom's revelation doesn't just humiliate Trump, It shifts the national conversation about who truly sustains America's federal system. For decades, the GOP framed Democrats as reckless spenders, fueling stereotypes of liberal welfare states. Yet the data prove that states like California and New York are the donors, while many of Trump's base states are takers. This is not just about accounting, it's about political power. If Democrats can successfully brand themselves as the fiscally responsible party that subsidizes the nation, they strip Republicans of their most prized talking point. And for a party that sells itself on economic stewardship, that is a dangerous wound. Going forward, expect this argument to resurface in the 2024 election cycle and beyond. If Democrats lean into it, they can build a case that Republican strongholds aren't models of prosperity, but dependent wards of the federal system. Trump and his allies will likely double down on cultural issues, immigration, crime, and wokeness, precisely because they cannot win on fiscal math. Meanwhile, figures like Newsom may gain traction as the new face of a Democratic Party that fights aggressively, mocking Trump while simultaneously exposing Republican hypocrisy. This could set the stage not only for the 2024 presidential race, but also for a broader realignment in how Americans view state-level governance and federal funding. Donald Trump has built his political career on attacking blue states like California, mocking them as chaotic and fiscally irresponsible. But Gavin Newsom has ripped away that facade with one devastating truth. It's California and other Democratic-led states that keep America's finances afloat, while many red states drain the system dry. By exposing this fiscal imbalance and pairing it with brutal statistics on crime, healthcare, and education, Newsom didn't just embarrass Trump. He dismantled the core myth that Republicans are the party of responsibility and self-reliance. If the red states are the real takers, what does that make Trump? The man who champions them while demonizing the states that pay the bills? That's the paradox MAGA can't resolve, and it's a narrative Democrats could ride straight into the 2024 and 2028 battles. The numbers don't lie, and they speak louder than Trump's bluster. What's your take on this? Do you agree that Newsom has finally exposed Trump's biggest weakness? Or do you think the GOP will find a way to spin it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this analysis valuable, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more deep dives that cut through the noise and go beyond the headlines. Thanks for watching.